What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ballbusters podcast. My name is Will. Joining me is my co-host Eric, and today we're going to be going through the injury report going into NFL Week 6, just getting you guys updated on all the latest injury stuff. We know we don't have a recap this week. This is help to supplement that, so we're going to get that out to you guys. But before we get started, Eric, you got anything for the people?
Yeah, lots of injuries to talk about today, so I think this is going to be a valuable video for you guys heading into Week 6. And then also, before we get into it, we would very much appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. We do see those watch hours out there. We have a lot of watch hours, lots of people watching these videos, but haven't yet subscribed to the channel. We're just trying to grow, trying to improve each and every week. And it would mean a lot to us if you could hit that sub button, the like button, and leave a comment as well, because we do respond to every single one of those, and we love the engagement with you guys. So yeah, just help us out on the YouTube front. And yeah, stick along for the ride. We'll help you out for the rest of the.
Yep. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the list, starting off with two of the biggest names. First one, we're going to start with Mr. Justin Jefferson. Suffered a hamstring injury last week, and it's looking like they're going to be placing him on IR pretty soon. What do you think about this one in terms of the outlook?
I think it's fairly cut and dry. I think, with his injury history, or lack of injury history, really, I think this is the first time he will have missed a game in his career due to injury. The fact that he's young, the fact that he's so athletic, I don't think we have to worry about any extended absence past the mandatory 4 games for IR. It sucks that it had to be 4 games and that he couldn't have come back sooner, but I understand, obviously, with the Vikings being 1-4 at this point, wanting to play it safe with the best player on their team. At this point, I'm kind of curious if they're going to blow it up, if they're going to trade Kirk. All sorts of question marks start to flow. But just from Justin Jefferson's standpoint, I'm not worried about him missing any more than the mandatory 4 weeks.
Nah, I also agree with that. Like you said, unless he ends up missing more time, just because, like you said, they're blowing up the situation. That's the only way I could see him waiting out anymore. Obviously, this is going to be a bump up for guys like KJ Osborne. This should also bump up Jordan Addison as well. He should actually get his opportunity now. Do you think he'll be able to find some footing in this offense with this opportunity possibly?
I do. Even last game, after Justin Jefferson went down, he was still technically running behind KJ Osborne, and maybe that's still the case, but with those two guys being the main 2 receivers, so Jordan Addison being on the field in all 2 wide receiver sets, he should be really, really valuable. He's outproduced KJ Osborne per opportunity basically all season, and so I expect that to continue. But I do think that KJ Osborne is probably worth a pickup. He's going to be highly involved and was targeted fairly heavily after JJ went down.
I 100% agree with that. And before we move on to the next one, you have anything, Mr. Justin Jefferson, left?
I think that's it. Anything worth talking about with TJ Hockenson? I feel like his underlying metrics have been a little disappointing. Obviously, the production has been there, but maybe this is a slight bump up for him as well.
Yeah, it's a possible slight bump up just in terms of the volume Justin Jefferson was getting has to go somewhere. So I think TJ Hockenson could end up benefiting from this, but I feel like in his role, it's probably going to end up benefiting the wide receivers a little bit more than TJ Hockenson, but it should be a slight bump anyways.
Yeah, agreed.
And then with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next player we have on the docket. Another big name, Mr. Devon Achane, someone who's rose up through the ranks quite a lot in the past couple weeks. Suffered what looked like a pretty confusing injury this week. They're calling it a knee injury. At first we thought it was an ankle. Has since been revealed to be a knee. And now they're saying he could miss time and could land on IR. Obviously, we haven't heard anything from Mike McDaniel yet, but we talked a little bit before everything started, and Eric kind of let me know, too, that Mike McDaniel doesn't really talk unless he has all of the facts. So, Eric, what do you think about this situation right here?
It sucks. I don't want to speculate too much. Just like Mike McDaniel, I don't want to, try to talk about anything before we know all of what's going on. Like you mentioned, we thought it was a fairly mild injury. We thought it was an ankle. We thought he could play next week, and that's still kind of within the range of outcomes. But it seems like they're leaning towards multiple weeks missed, and like you said, potentially IR. Edwin Porras, a fantasy doctor on Twitter, prior to this Adam Schefter tweet talking about the possibility of IR, already had him listed with a projected return date of week 9 or week 10. I do tend to trust Edwin Porras. I feel like he's on top of all of this injury news. And so he seems to think it's going to be a multi-week absence. Obviously concerning. I don't think I have any other insights as far as like time missed, but what do you think this means for the rest of the Dolphins running backs?
So obviously we got Jeff Wilson, who's been activated for his 21-day window, but we don't know exactly when he's going to come back. So it's tough to say how that affects him. But obviously this is wheels up for, I guess, for Raheem Mostert in his backfield in terms of him getting that
Yeah.
opportunity again. Um, all in all, in terms of the offense, it's a little bit less explosive now without Devon Achane. Obviously, he's made some great plays in the last couple of weeks, but I don't know. I feel like it's obviously wheels up for Raheem Mostert, but in terms of the rest of the team, I'm not really sure how it affects everyone else as a whole. Especially until we get Jeff Wilson back. So it's really just wheels up for Raheem Mostert until that happens.
Yeah, so also from Edwin Porras, he has Jeff Wilson's expected return date as week 6. So he does expect him to be activated and play immediately. Um, we'll see, if that means he's getting the full slate of touches or if they kind of slowly ramp him back into things. That's probably more of what I would expect. Raheem Mostert has been the one until like the past 2 weeks. And so, yeah, I fully expect him to be the guy carrying most of the workload. But as far as how it affects the entirety of the offense, I don't think it changes much. Like the funnel of touches has been Tyreek Hill, the running backs, Jalen Waddle kinda, and then it's scraps for the rest of the guys. And I think that continues to be the case.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, it sucks for Devon Achane, but he'll be back at some point soon. Should still be performing at the same level. It's just one of the more confusing ones that we definitely have to keep an eye on throughout the week and see how it plays out. See if we can get more news on this as the week goes on too.
Absolutely.
So we are going to move to the next player now. These ones are going to be a little bit quicker than that one. Those are our two real in-depth ones, but now we're moving on. We got Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who did not play last week with an abdomen injury. Do we have any news about this one right here in terms of it being an abdomen injury? Is this a hernia situation, or is this more of a just soreness issue?
I don't think it's a hernia. I haven't heard anything confirming that it is a hernia. And I also saw a tweet from another fantasy doctor. I don't think I have it up in front of me, but from Jeff Mueller, if I remember correctly. He had a quote from Amon-Ra saying that he's feeling good and that he's leaning towards being probable rather than questionable heading into week 6. Although technically in NFL terms, probable is no longer a designation, so he is going to be questionable, but it sounds like he's probably going to suit up this week.
Gotcha. Okay. So at least that's hopeful for Amon-Ra St. Brown owners out there. The team still looked really good out there, even missing him, I will say.
Yeah.
But having him back in this offense is going to be amazing, obviously, for that team. But they were looking really good, even without him in there. So it's encouraging to see him come back to an offense that's still performing at a high level. So that's going to be pretty exciting going forward.
Absolutely.
Next one, we got sort of a semi-big name. Someone still sort of gaining that respect in fantasy, but hates to see him go down. Mr. Anthony Richardson suffered an AC sprain in his throwing shoulder. In terms of the timetable, we're still waiting to get more news on it, really. First, they were saying it was grade 3 and that he was going to miss some time, could miss a month or more. Now they're looking for a second opinion on the shoulder, and they're still saying that he could miss some time with this, obviously, because it's an AC sprain in his throwing shoulder, so it's going to limit him in his play. But there's still some talk that is a little bit optimistic that he could play pretty soon. Not this week, but possibly in the next couple of weeks. But I don't know too much about this situation. They haven't really reported a whole lot.
Yeah, to be honest, and again, this information isn't coming from me. This is coming from the information that I've gathered from fantasy doctors and tweets from people more knowledgeable than myself. I wouldn't expect a quick return from Anthony Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
One, the investment from the team, how good he's looked so far. I think they probably want to wait for him to get fully healthy and not jeopardize even more of his rookie season. According to Edwin Porras and his projected return date, he says anywhere between week 10 and week 12. So that would be 4 to 6 weeks at that point, I believe. So likely an IR stint coming. And I think with a grade 3 AC joint sprain, that makes a lot of sense. Again, not a doctor, but I think that does mean a full separation of AC joint, and then there's also like a secondary attachment from like the clavicle to, I don't know, this is where I'm getting in over my head, but there was like a diagram from one of the Twitter doctors where there were multiple separations. I think the biggest thing that we have to look for heading into this week and beyond is whether he's going to need surgery or whether he's just going to try to rehab it without surgery. with surgery, it could mean an even longer extended time at potentially the end of his season. But if he just tries to rehab it, then hopefully we see that 4 to 6 week timeline come to fruition.
Now, just to get ahead of the storm, because I feel like this is something that's coming our way at some point soon, are we concerned at all with any of these injuries for Anthony Richardson? Because it seems like every single week he's ended up on the injury report at some point. Are we concerned at all?
I'm not ready to call him injury prone. And the injuries that he's gotten, I don't think have been a result of his play style even. Like, yeah, people are going to talk about him being a running quarterback and being reckless or whatever. If you go back and watch the video, these are the injuries that he's sustained so far this season are injuries that pocket passers are going to get. They're like, it's not any different with the way that he's playing football. So I'm not worried about it in that regard. If he ends up just being injury prone, like being a player that's more likely to get injured than somebody else, then that could be a problem, but I'm not going to label him with that this early on into his career.
Nah, I 100% agree. I think that it's been a lot of bad luck early on, and that it's going to shape out at some point. Because like you said, these aren't really injuries that are indicative of a, running quarterback, especially like concussions, shoulder stuff. That's stuff that could happen to any quarterback out there. So we're hopeful for Anthony Richardson, but I think, like you said, they're going to take their time with him. They're not going to rush him back out there. There's no real need to, really. And Gardner Minshew is one of the most competent backups in the league, if not the most. So, yeah.
He's looked good.
Next person we got up here on the list, Mr. Austin Ekeler, looking to actually return this coming week. He hasn't played since, week 2? He's been out for a little while. It might even be week 1, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is week 1 because they had the bye in week 5 that he might have returned week 5 if they were playing. But yeah, I think he has been out since week 1.
Yeah, it's been the Joshua Kelly show. So obviously Austin Ekeler being back should be a huge bump back up to this offense, especially with them losing Mike Williams. This should help kind of supplement that, which is kind of exciting also because we saw the kind of volume Austin Ekeler can get in this offense when these wide receivers do start to go down, and that's already started to happen this year. And I feel like Austin Ekeler's going to come back and just be deployed in all the ways we've seen him deployed as a receiver. So that should be exciting to see him come back this week.
Yeah, can you call a guy like Austin Ekeler league winning when he went in the early to mid first round? Like, I really do think he's going to come back and light it up. Probably be RB2 the rest of the way.
I honestly think it's okay to call him that now, just because, like you said, he's been gone for so long that people are starting to forget. But it's like when people insert him back into the lineup, you're going to feel that he's there, especially if you're playing against him. So, yeah. 100% agree right there.
It's kind of crazy, like, the past 2 years, it's been the Christian McCaffrey, Austin Ekeler show, the guys at the top of the list, and people keep calling for their downfall, keep calling for injuries, age cliff, whatever the case may be, and they just continue to deliver, and I think that's going to be the case once again for the rest of this year.
I absolutely 100% agree, and probably for the next few years, to be honest with you.
Yeah, wouldn't shock me.
Moving on to the next one, we got another player, if we want to call him that, Daniel Jones for the Giants.
If we want to call him a player, that's crazy.
I'm not going to completely blame Daniel Jones. The Giants have kind of been bad as a whole, but, Daniel
Their
Jones.
Offensive line.
Yeah, putrid.
Terrible.
Putrid. But with that being said, we are optimistic that Daniel Jones should be playing this week. From Brian Dable himself, after he got a little bit more information about the neck injury that he suffered, left the game for. It's looking like he should be playing this week, but what do you think about this one right here?
I didn't see the injury happen. It's a neck injury. According to Edwin Porras, again, looking at his kind of sheet and expected return date, he's also got him listed as week 6, but has a little to be determined next to it because there hasn't been a lot of information that's come out to the public about the neck injury. But as you're, I'm assuming, looking on the screen here, it does say that Brian Dable is optimistic for him to play week 6 against the Bills. Doesn't really matter whether he's on the field or not. The Giants are still going to have a rough time going up against this Bills defense, who is going to be out for revenge after losing Jags in week 5.
Yeah, so it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for the Giants this whole season, man. And, I kind of love to see it, also hate to see it. I got some Daniel Jones stocks. But we're hoping that can get a little bit better of a situation. Next person we're moving on to on our list, Mr. Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns, the tickler himself. Hold on, I'm sorry, still clicking this. So they haven't been really committal to him playing week 6. Week 5 was kind of a surprise that he sat out. They announced like the day of the game that he wasn't playing, and that's kind of continued. So we don't know if he's gonna be out there soon. So it may be the DTR show again. What do you think about this situation right here?
That'd be real ugly.
Yeah.
That would look pretty bad.
Yeah.
Here, I'm trying to pull it up. I don't know if they've moved the line already or not, but the initial line for this game, the Browns versus the 49ers, I think was 49ers minus 4.5, which is not even close to enough. So if that's still the case, bet that shit.
Yeah. Whoa.
I'm pulling it up right now, especially if Deshaun sits. Oh my goodness. Let's see. NFL. It's moved to -5. I'm still all over that.
Yeah, I'm about to say I know what I'm doing after this video, guys. Also, check out our sponsors at Sleeper if you need any DFS needs. 100% deposit match. Check that out. But with that being said, Mr. Kevin Stefanski came out and said that Deshaun Watson will be on the field as soon as he's functionally ready. So it's not even look like they're really looking for him to be healthy 100%. But as soon as he's able to function, they're putting him ahead of DTR and putting him out there on the field. So this is one to keep an eye on. They haven't been committal to him playing in week 6, so it's not a lock that he's going to play this week. And if he doesn't, like you said, it's going to be tough sledding out there 100% for the Browns. Not even, tough sledding is kind of a weird even word. That's not even going to, it's going to be a rout of sorts. A spiritual beatdown of sorts.
A spiritual beatdown. No, I completely agree. I don't have any extra insight for this one. It was, like you said, a surprise that he sat out last week, so I would anticipate him playing. But again, not a ton of news coming out. And I expect them to lose this game anyway, so maybe they hold him out for another week just to be sure. NFL teams don't really do it like that. They believe in themselves, but I certainly don't believe in the Browns in week 6.
No, 100%. 100%. Next up, we've got Mr. Deontay Johnson, someone we've been waiting for to come back from injury, who was placed on IR. Should be coming back week 7. It's looking like. Yeah, another week 1 injury right there. Down immediately.
Yeah. So he would be eligible to return this week, although it looks unlikely that he will be back, right?
Mm-hmm. They're saying like week 7 is more of a likely return for Deontay. Yeah. But it is hopeful, like you said, that window does sort of can be open now. He's eligible to return.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add really. That's also looking at the list again from Edwin Porras. He also says week 7. So I would anticipate one more week waiting on Deontay, and I think that's going to be a welcome return for the Steelers. George Pickens, I will say, has picked it up, has looked pretty good in a few. That was an unintentional. We'll pick it up there. Anyway, he's looked pretty good in a few of the games that he's had the wide receiver core to himself. And he's started to separate a little bit better. He's earned a little bit more target volume than I expected. I still think that Deontay is going to be that target hog when he comes back and allow Pickens to kind of go back towards his deep ball, jump ball role. Hopefully this would mean a slight uptick for the Steelers offense, but Matt Canada continues to disappoint and make this offense just look like a shit show every week.
Yeah, it's I remember when I was saying like the Steelers should be one of the more exciting offenses. I take it back. I'm sorry if I said that and, made you guys invest in this offense. You shouldn't have, because it's crazy out there.
They got us all, man. They did it to us all. I was never a believer in Kenny Pickett, but I should have seen more into the Matt Canada news, because he's been there and it's been terrible his entire tenure.
Yeah, he's been, like you said, he's just been awful. Next player we have here on the list, Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs, who did not play last week against the Panthers with a hamstring injury. Are we hopeful that he's going to come back this week? Because I feel like him not playing last week wasn't really expected.
Yeah, he was questionable all week, and I think a lot of people expected him to play, and then he was deemed inactive fairly late in the week. I do expect him to come back, just based on all of the information that we have in front of us. But I wouldn't expect him to have a huge workload. They haven't wanted to give him that even when he is healthy. David Montgomery has been the bell cow, and I think will continue to be. Craig Reynolds actually looked pretty good in his limited opportunities at the end of the game versus the Panthers last week. So I don't think they need to involve Gibbs a ton. What do you think?
It's kind of like we talked about in one of our videos last week. If they can use David Montgomery, they're going to use David Montgomery the whole game. And Jahmyr Gibbs kind of needs to fit a certain game script for this team for him to get like the usage that we're looking for him to get out of him. So it's tough, like you said, to have him hurt for the week. But in terms of a loss for the team, it really just wasn't that big of a loss because they just didn't need him for the game.
Yeah. So I'll ask you real quick before we move on. They do get the Bucks in Week 6. Any optimism for a close game script, or are they walking away with this one?
This one should at least fit Jahmyr Gibbs' play style a little bit better. Since the Bucks are supposed to have a better run defense, David Montgomery shouldn't find as much success between the tackles, but, the Lions have surprised me before. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm hopeful for really Jahmyr Gibbs, but I'm not confident.
Agreed.
Next person we got here on the list, someone who we're going to breeze by this one pretty quick. We got Jamaal Williams of the Saints, who is set to return at some point pretty soon, either this week or next week. It's looking more like a Week 7 return for Jamaal. But in terms of his role in this offense, I feel like he's pretty much done for the most part. But what do you feel about this one?
Nah, I'm in full agreement. Alvin Kamara has looked fantastic since he's come back from his suspension. He's gotten, the workhorse role. He's been not only dominant on the ground, but also through the air, getting a ton of targets. And Kendre Miller also looked good in his limited opportunities last week. I thought that Kendre Miller would be better than Jamaal Williams immediately, and it seems like that probably is the case. So especially with Jamaal Williams being as old as he is and now coming off of an injury, I think he's probably sitting in third place here in this running back core.
Yeah, which sucks because, he's such a great personality, but in terms of football, this is probably where he needs to be and kind of what we saw coming. Like you said, Alvin Kamara has been performing pretty well since he's come back, and then Kendre Miller obviously looks better than Jamaal Williams has this whole season. So, yeah, Jamaal Williams should be back. Should be a good depth move for the New Orleans Hornets. Goddamn, New Orleans Saints. I don't know why I couldn't talk right here. But he's a loss. He was a loss when they lost him, but now when they're getting him back, it's not really much they're gaining back. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Next up on the list, we got Mr. James Conner of the Cardinals. What do you think about this one right here while I get this pulled up?
This one's kind of a big deal. Another one that we haven't heard a ton of reporting on. We don't have very many specifics. I'm looking once again at Edwin Porras' list. He says anywhere from Week 7 to Week 8, so he does anticipate him missing this week, and potentially a little bit more beyond that. Have you heard anything from the team directly? The only thing that I've seen, which I think is indicative, is that they signed Saints practice squad. So I feel like that's kind of confirmation that he's not going to play this week. But I don't know what that means going forward.
Yeah, I think he's set to miss a little bit of time, but I don't know. I've never seen anybody sign Tony Jones for the long run either. So at the same time, I feel like it's only going to be a couple games. So I would trust Evan Porras on this one. I think Tony Jones, just a little bit of a Band-Aid on the situation. We just got to monitor it. James Conner, obviously he's dealt with injuries just about his entire career. So I think the 2 to 3 weeks is pretty optimistic. Probably sounds about right. Okay.
And then also another question for you. James Conner's been productive. He's been a useful fantasy asset so far this season. When he went down, Amari DiMercato, apologies if I said his name wrong, but he filled in and played pretty well, had a decent fantasy day for himself. That was without Keontae Ingram active. I think he was injured. He should probably be back this week. What kind of split are you looking at? Are you targeting either of these guys on waivers?
If Keontae Ingram plays, I would probably target him in terms of this, the guy who's had the most experience in this offense and who typically has been right behind James Conner. Like you said, what was the other guy's name that you said? What is it? Amari
DiMercato? Let me give me a sec. Let me confirm I'm not saying this wrong.
Yeah.
Or at least
that guy.
It's spelled that way.
That guy. I just think that I would value Keontae Ingram over him just because he does have the experience in this offense. And he was the guy we were looking at this offseason if like they had gotten rid of James Conner as someone who would step up and get more volume. I don't think that situation's really changed too much. Besides him being hurt last week is why he didn't get the volume last week. But
Yeah. I think I'm saying that right. It's spelled that way. Amari DiMercato. I don't know which way to lean, man. Like you're right that Keontae has been there for longer. He knows the playbook probably better, but we've also seen him have opportunity and
not do
be
anything
terrible
with
in it.
yeah.
And we've seen him, DiMercato perform this week and also in very limited opportunities with James Conner healthy and looked fairly efficient as well. So I might lean that direction, but I mean, I'm not super hopeful for either of them being anything better than a flex at best, like a desperate flex, really.
Yeah, like I'm not blowing the fab on either of these guys, but one of them has to play and one of them has to do something. So take your pick, guys, whoever you guys think is going to do it between those two.
Yeah.
Next up on the list, someone who's been underwhelming so far this year, Javonte Williams for the Broncos. Obviously got hurt a couple of weeks ago and has not come back. Well, yeah, got hurt a couple of weeks ago. Did he play at all? He was inactive last week.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's right. He was a late inactive last week because they thought that he was going to be ready to go by the time the week came up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough to talk about the Broncos, man. It's really tough to talk about anybody on the Broncos. But with this injury for Javonte, it's looking like it should be a shorter term injury in terms of, obviously he had the season ender last year and there have been longer term injuries, but this one should only be maybe a couple of weeks, if that. They're saying, at least Evan Porras here on this list like you have here, it says he should return week 6 or could return week 6 possibly. What do you think about this situation right here? And do you think that this is even like, I don't know. I'm not going to say a big deal, but how do you see this shaking out?
It's a weird one. So just in terms of his injury status by itself, before we get into the rest of the situation, I do anticipate him playing this week. He's currently listed as limited in Monday's estimated practice report. Weirdly listed with a quad injury, even though what's kept him out has been a hip, I think.
Hip flexor.
So not sure what that's about, but maybe that's a good sign that he is going to be healthy from the hip and whatever this other weird be minor. So I do expect him to go, but Jaleel McLaughlin, man, he's looked so explosive. Like he's looked like Devin Achane light so far in his limited opportunities this season. In terms of efficiency metrics, he's been right behind Achane in yards per carry and all of the other rushing yards over expected and stuff like that. So do you think that Javonte comes back to like the 1A role, or is it Jaleel's kind of backfield until Javonte gets fully healthy?
Oof, I would kind of lean towards the latter, to be honest with you. Just with the way this team has been performing and all that, there's no real rush to get Javonte out there and a super heavy workload just because of this team has been terrible. But like you said, with Jaleel out there performing the way he is, it would be good to see him actually take that next step up, and the team should start featuring him more. It's something they can't really ignore at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. What I was going to say is terrible in a weird way, not in a way that we expected. Like the offense hasn't been that bad. Russell Wilson has actually performed fairly admirably with the situation that he's had around him. Their defense has been historically bad, which is crazy considering that was easily their strongest side of the ball last year. They were one of the best defenses in football, actually. So it's just a weird situation all around for the Broncos this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find that quote, but it was like when they were doing all the trades over the weekend, they just said, we are looking for anyone on defense. Offense is fine, but we are looking for anyone. I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'll hit you back with that quote later.
Warm bodies, please.
They were just like, anyone with a pulse, please.
That's crazy.
Moving on to the next person on the list. We already talked about Jeff Wilson, so we're going to blow by that one a little. We got Juju Smith-Schuster with the explosive knee. This is looking to be one of the worst signings for the Patriots in recent history. Quite literally offered the same contract to Juju that the Raiders offered to Jacoby Myers. It's looking like Jacoby Myers should have been the guy they kept. But Juju underperforming, dealing with injury. I'm not really sure if there's any optimism in this one, or there's really any discussion to be had besides the fact that he will be back on the field at some point.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. This team sucks. He sucks. Demario Douglas, I think, is probably worth talking about. He's somebody that we did skip over. He's injured as well, and is probably going to return in week 7. I think he's better than Juju at this point. He's looked electric, but yeah, I'm not starting any Patriots in my fantasy lineup.
Yeah, it's terrible over there. It's absolutely awful. Next, we got on the list Mr. Justin Herbert, someone who recently got an injury to his offhand. How do we feel about this one right here? It's just a finger fracture on his non-throwing hand.
Yeah, there was a little bit of worry prior to the bye week that he might need surgery on it, which would lead him to have to miss a little bit more time. But we haven't heard anything about that, and so I fully expect him to come back this week with no limitations really, unless we hear otherwise. The only issue that he had after sustaining the injury is that he had trouble taking snaps under center. He had to be in shotgun for most of the remainder of the game. We'll see if that plays into play calling at all this week. But yeah, for the most part, I expect him to be unaffected.
I never really thought about that. That's got to hurt pretty bad because that ball's getting snapped right into your fingers right there.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
We talked about Justin Jefferson. We got Mike Evans next up on the docket. Mr. Mike Evans, who suffered was it hamstring?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, had to leave the game early. We're optimistic that he should be back pretty soon, but the team's obviously going to take their look to see, and they're going to do an MRI to see exactly what the damage is. But so far, they're thinking that it's going to be minor, and he should be back pretty soon. But how do you feel about this one right here? Obviously, one of the more favorite targets of Baker.
Yeah. Who did we say they're playing? We talked about this matchup already.
Yeah, we literally just said it.
They're playing the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yes.
No, the Lions.
No,
the
they're playing the
Lions.
Lions. We talked about it with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Lions' run defense has been really good. Pass defense has been a slightly weaker spot. So I do expect them to have to rely on their receivers in this one. Like you said, Mike Evans has been the favorite target. Mike Evans consistently injured, but also consistently plays through injury for the most part. So yeah, if he's active, I'm definitely playing him in this game.
100% agree. Don't really feel like there's more to really say there on that one. So we're going to move on to the next person on the list, Mr. Pat Freiermuth of the Steelers. He is dealing with a hamstring injury as well. Did not practice on Thursday, didn't practice on Wednesday, was inactive against the Ravens. So going forward, do we feel like he's going to get back out there on the field soon? Because obviously, this is a hamstring thing, and he hasn't been practicing at all. I don't believe he's been limited at all this week as of Tuesday. So do we feel like he's going to be coming back soon?
I think soon, yeah. As listed again on this Edwin Porras projected return schedule, it's looking like week 7. So one more week is what he's projecting. And I think, unless we hear otherwise from the team, that's what I would expect as well, just because I think this is a re-injury that he suffered. I want to say it was like during the preseason, early or late in the offseason or something like that. So they might want to be a little bit more cautious with bringing him back early. But again, Pittsburgh offense, not one that I'm investing heavily in, especially if Deontay also comes back. Most of the volume is going to be taken.
No, I absolutely agree. There. Next up, we got Mr. Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants, another New York Giant who has not played since week 1, week 2. There's a lot of early injuries that I feel like guys haven't played for a while since.
I'll look it up if you want to kind of brief us about his situation.
Yeah, so he didn't play last week, obviously, didn't play the week prior, and in terms of this ankle injury, I'm not sure. I feel like they've held him out this long, so he should be coming back soon, right? And we have week 6 down here for Evan Porras as a return time as well. So I feel like this should be the week he comes back. It's been about 4 weeks since he's been out, so he should be back soon. How do we feel about this, though? Because we've obviously seen ankle injuries hamper Saquon for entire seasons even. So
Yeah. What you're referring to, I'm assuming, is year that he was coming back off the ACL, suffered the high ankle sprain, I believe, in like week 4 or week 5, and then he just wasn't the same for the rest of the season. He did play week 2, and he had a great game in week 2, going 17-63 and a touchdown, along with some more production through the air, 6 for 29 and another touchdown. I do wonder if this limits him athletically, movement-wise, coming off of the high ankle sprain. He's coming back to a bad situation, so I feel like they probably limit his touches at least a little bit early on, just because. Is that even the case? Is that a dumb thing to say? That's more so what I would hope they would do, because I want him to be fully healthy. But on a team as desperate for wins as they are, like, they probably want to get their best player involved quickly. What do you think?
I think Brian Daboll's job depends on Saquon Barkley at this point, so he's going to be out there on the field as soon as he can be, to be honest.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. So we could probably see him involved early. I hope that doesn't lead to a re-injury or any subsequent issues. But we've seen what he's done with high volume in the past, and so obviously with his name and with his usage, you're going to be starting him. It's just, I'm a little nervous, like I've been saying, about the re-injury risk here.
Oh, yeah. And also, this is a contract year for Saquon, too. Every year feels like it's been a contract year for Saquon. But
every year's a contract year for all running backs, basically.
Yeah, especially after seeing that Jonathan Taylor contract. He's going to be more inclined to get out there sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
That's true. That's true.
Next up on the list, someone who's in concussion protocol right now. We got Mr. Tank Dell of the Houston Texans, who D'Amico Ryans has stated they're keeping an eye on him throughout the week. Obviously, he's in the concussion protocol. They want to try to get him back out there as soon as they can, and they could get him back this week, but it's looking like it's going to be more like a next week type of thing. But what do you think about this situation right here from Mr. Tank Dell?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Either you or the audience out there, you can leave it in the comments. I don't think I've seen a single player this season enter the concussion protocol with a concussion, like an actual diagnosed concussion, and play the following week. It's possible, like the concussion protocol does have it in there that you can return to play the next week after suffering a concussion, but I just haven't seen it yet. And so I think it's very likely that he misses this week, comes back the following week.
Yeah, I think, that is a big distinguishing factor. The fact that he actually suffered a concussion and not just in the concussion protocol. You know what I'm saying? The people you see return back after a week, like you said, they're in the protocol, not quite a concussion, but just making sure they don't have a concussion. But with this one, he is diagnosed, so it's gonna be a little bit, probably a week 7, possibly even a week 8 return for Tank Dell, depending on how things go.
Yeah, I'd keep an eye on it. I wouldn't be too worried about an extensive
it should be a
time
week
here, but yeah, just a week is what I'm thinking.
And with that being said, we're gonna move on to the next player on this list. We got Mr. T. Higgins, who was out last week. It's with a rib injury. I actually didn't know all of this was happening with T. Higgins right now. So do you have any context on this one right here?
Not a ton. Maybe it's been my own fault, but I haven't seen a ton reported about it. He fractured his rib against the Cardinals. And with these rib injuries, it's typically a pain tolerance thing. And, I can fully understand him having missed a week already. Edwin Porras has it on here that he could potentially return to play this week, but he has it at week 6 or 7. So I don't... It's basically going to be up to him, I think. He's probably going to be cleared to play by the doctors. He's probably going to wear like some sort of flak jacket or something like that. But it's going to be up to him and his pain tolerance, I would think, whether he plays in week 6.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to have to monitor his practice situation throughout the week just to see, but hopeful that he'll be back this week. Yeah. Next up on the list, someone who went down with a scary looking injury that we thought was going to be a little bit more intense than it ended up being. Got Mr. Travis Kelce, who went down with a non-contact ankle injury. People were going nuts at first, thought it was an Achilles, but luckily it's a low ankle sprain is what it's looking like, and he was able to return back to play as well. He didn't practice obviously yesterday, but you kind of don't expect that. If he's playing hurt, he's not going to practice. They're probably going to rest the majority of this week. But in terms of him playing, he should still be out there on the field going forward. Do you think this is going to limit production at all? Did you see any type of differences between the Travis Kelce before he got hurt and afterwards? Because me personally, besides maybe a little bit of slowness, a little bit of stiffness, I didn't really see too much of a difference.
I don't know that it matters too much. If he's out there, you're firing him up. He's in your lineup, no questions. Obviously you want to see him fully healthy, but this team doesn't have anywhere else to go. I guess I will say your boy Rashee Rice is good on limited snaps, and they've talked about getting him more late. But I mean, it's Travis Kelce and damn near nobody else out there, so it should be plenty of volume returning his way in week 6.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Whether I take Travis Kelce on one ankle over probably 90% of tight ends in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Especially in fantasy, at least. In fantasy. Next up on the list, we got Treylon Burks of the Tennessee Titans. Being honest, I haven't kept up with the Tennessee Titans too much either. I know he has struggled with some health issues this season, but not the extent of it. It was a knee injury I saw pretty early on, like week 3. Oh, yeah. Knee injury, inactive for week 4. Ruled out for week 5. Officially out for week 5. How do we feel about Treylon Burks going forward in terms of his health? Do we feel like he's going to be back soon? Because they haven't talked about him a whole lot. And just based off the injury itself, he should be back in the next couple of weeks. But we haven't really heard much.
I'm concerned. This is starting to scare me. It's lingering too long. Edwin Porras does have him down as either a week 6 or 7 return. I'm not sure if that's going to be kind of the verbiage that was used with Cooper Kupp, if that's going to be a return to play or a return to performance. Yet to be seen which one that is, if he's going to be 100% when he hits the field again. From a dynasty perspective, I know we're talking mostly redraft, but red flags for Treylon Burks right now, a guy that I really believed in, a level prospect, somebody that I thought shined in limited opportunity in year 1, but obviously was limited because of injury. This continues to be the case. I'm scared that this is going to be a pattern.
Yeah, maybe an indicator of sorts. Something that at least to keep an eye on, not something to condemn him for, but like you said, it's not hopeful for sure.
Yeah.
So we got to keep an eye on that to see how it goes. He could surprise us for the rest of the season, but like you said, it's getting close to time to hit the panic button.
Agreed.
And finishing out our list at the wide receiver position, we got Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson of the Giants, who actually has come back pretty recently and has been performing pretty well. I believe last week he was dealing with some sort of like concussion protocol, right? In terms of him going out of the game.
That sounds right.
Yeah, see, Wan'Dale Robinson concussion done for the day. Giants unrule out Wan'Dale Robinson with a concussion and bring him back.
What?
Yeah, I remember this one being weird because people were like, why is he back in the game if he has a concussion? So I don't exactly understand what the situation is right here. Or this could be one of those ones where he came back, they take a look at him this week and they're like, yeah, you definitely can't play next week, I feel like. But I don't know. What do you think about this one? Because this is weird.
I didn't realize this is one that I hadn't kept up with. So I didn't know about this weird unruled out situation. Looking at Edwin Porras' projection once again, he's saying week 7. So if it is a concussion, if he is diagnosed with that, again, same kind of timeline that we talked about with Tank Dell and everybody else. One missed week, and he's probably back for the next one. Wan'Dale was a guy that we talked about as a stash in our sit, start, stash, quit video, I think last week. He has been targeted fairly heavily. He got 6 targets, 5 catches, but for only 18 yards last week.
It's the Giants still.
It is the Giants. But yeah, he's obviously being used on very short and not even very many intermediate routes. So I don't know how impactful this is going to be to fantasy lineups, but just a guy that I like. Unfortunate to see him go down.
100% agree. But with that being said, that's going to round out our list. What's up? Who we got? What am I missing?
One more, the Bears running backs that weren't listed on Edwin Porras' thing.
Duh.
If we could go into Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson here for a second, then we can wrap it up.
Yes, sir. So Khalil Herbert for the Bears suffered a knee injury this past week. Or a high ankle sprain. Sorry, not a knee injury. High ankle sprain. Set to miss several weeks. How do you feel about this one right here? Because he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Roschon Johnson, we're going to kind of compound this a little bit because it's the Bears. Roschon Johnson is dealing with a concussion, like he's in the concussion protocol right now.
But he missed last week already with
Right.
the concussion, right?
Right.
So he's likely to return this week.
Right.
So it's probably going to be Roschon Johnson and Deonta in the backfield. My take would probably be lean towards Roschon. I think it'll still be a split, but I think Roschon has showed us the highest upside of the two and has been the one that's been involved so far this season. Deonta has kind of been the odd man out.
I agree with that, especially since they're going to be playing against the Vikings next week. It should be a game they have to throw the ball a good amount, I feel like. Or actually, even running the ball should be pretty successful against the Vikings, too. So it should just be all around success for the running back room. But like you said, with Roschon Johnson in terms of opportunity, he's got the best skill set to keep him out on the field for the majority of the game. So I think that he's going to be, like you said, the one that we should target out here instead of Deonta Foreman. But Deonta Foreman has a lot of room to surprise me as well against this Vikings defense. That's the only thing that
Yes.
scares me a little bit.
So according to ESPN's analytics, they have Minnesota ranked as the 9th toughest run defense right now,
So they
which is
stepped it up
surprising
this
to me
year.
as well. Yeah, they were putrid last year, and coming into this year, they didn't start out hot, but I guess the past few weeks they've been performing better than we've expected, which, again, I think kind of leads me to confirm what I was already saying. Roschon is probably the guy to lean on if they're going to have to pass to stay in this game and aren't going to have that much success on the ground.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Didn't know that though. That's actually pretty good information to know. But with that being said, that's gonna round out our list of all the injury reports for the week. Thank you guys for watching this far into the video. Make sure you guys do all that great YouTube stuff. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when we drop all of our latest videos. Hit that like button. It's absolutely free and it's the best way to get our stuff out there into the YouTube algorithm. And also drop down in the comments below anybody you guys feel like we're maybe too pessimistic on, anybody you feel like we're too optimistic on. Sound off in the comments down below and let us know. And we can have a discussion down there. Or you can click the link in the description to join our Discord and have a deeper conversation over on that side with us and just some of the people who have joined our community. So let us know. And Eric, you got anything for the people before we head out of here?
Yeah, real quickly, if you guys also want to check that description for some links to our sponsors, we have Dynasty Owner down there, we have League Winners down there, some, even more fancy content. They can provide that to you guys. That out through them. We also have sponsors through Underdog and Sleeper for all of your best ball and DFS needs. You can check out our promo codes to get a 100% deposit match on both of the platforms. And lastly, Do Numbers if you're interested in some cool apparel, merch, t-shirts, hoodies, which I'm wearing right now.
Hell yeah.
Great stuff over there on that site. You can get listed below. So yeah, check all those out. Support us, support our sponsors. But I think that will do it. So if you've watched this far into the video, as always, we love you, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace. Noise.
That was really good.